Welcome to our conversation on building high-performing teams. This is our snapshot conversation. If you want more detail or want to go a little bit more in depth, we do have a little bit longer video for you. But I just want to go over kind of the key points of how you as a business leader, leader in an organization, business owner can build high-performing teams around you, and how you can make sure that these teams are what are driving your business to success. So some of the most important things that we can talk about with our high performing teams are going to be wrapped up in this video. And just really the focus for this talk is what you can do to reshape the way that you're thinking about your organization to attract people that want to work for you, are going to be high performing, and are going to help drive you towards your strategic initiatives. First and foremost, every business wants to find a high-performing team. They want to make teams. They want their teams to be great teams. However, very few find that formula that allows them to attract the right people or allows them to develop and maintain those teams throughout the course of their lifespan. So in this presentation, we're going to talk about how you can design high-performing teams that not only will help your company grow, but also attract other high-performing individuals to your brand. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what we need. We need to create a system and create a culture, create a company that we're not always having to go out and find the best people, that they are drawn to us. So how do we do that? Through this conversation, we're going to talk about understanding what actually drives your business, knowing what your business is, not just what your business does. We're going to talk about defining a high-performing individual, right? Every team is made up of people, individual people. So how do we know that we're attracting the right people to create a high-performing team? How do we craft those teams once we have the individuals that have joined us? And most importantly, how do we maintain that high-performing team? How do we make sure that we are setting those limits and that we are providing leadership that is going to allow that team to remain high-performing once we've gotten them together? So if I were to ask you the question, what is your business? 9 times out of 10, you'll probably respond with a product or service that you do. And that's common. Most leaders, when I say, hey, what's your business? They'll say, oh, I run a painting company, or I'm a tech company. We sell a software. And that's great. And that's what your business does. But that's not who your business is. Understanding this question will help you determine how you invest in your business and in your teams. On the flip side, failing to correctly identify your business can lead to a failure in resourcing your team appropriately. Your business is not your product or service, it's your people. Your product or service is what customers are buying. However, it's not what drives your business forward. Your people are your business. So failing to invest in them is a failure to invest in your business as a whole. One of the things that my team operates under, the idea is that your business is a living, breathing, organic thing. It's not like any other business in the world. It's not the same business even it was a year ago. It's not going to be the same business it is a year from now, because your business is made up of your people, and people change, people evolve, people grow. And so your business is always constantly shifting. And so because of that, we need to make sure that we are keeping leadership principles that allow us to shift and move with your business. And as your people move and as your business grows, our leadership philosophy and what we're looking at and how we tool and create those teams grows as well. One of the ways that we do this is we look at your business from a perspective of a wheel, and how most people, when they answer that question, what is your business? This is the model that they are referencing with that question. That model is, my business is what supports, or my product or service is what supports my business. And so that's what's driving it forward. When in fact, that's not the case. Your product or service doesn't support your business. It's what your business, what brings in revenue. It's what drives the money into your business. It ultimately can be kind of what you're known for. However, the actual organizational management principles that are moving your business forward, allowing you to offer the best product or service, allowing you to solve problems with those product or services when they arise, is not inherently found in this view. So what we would recommend and what we try and encourage is we take an employee-centric view of business. In this model, the people are the spokes of the wheel. If a wheel doesn't have spokes, it's not going to roll straight. It's going to wobble. Maybe it's not going to withstand kind of a long duration of travel. And so what we want is we want to create an organization in which our people are the spokes. The people are what's in the middle and what's supporting our business. Our product or service is just the rubber that's hitting the road. It's what people see. It's what people buy. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not what our business is. And so by moving our mindset from an product or service centric business to an employee centric business, our investment choices move with it. So if I feel like the most important thing in my business is my product or service, that's where I'm going to spend my money. That's where I'm going to invest my resources. Versus if I feel like the people are the most important part of my business, now I'm going to invest in the people. I'm going to invest in my business as it truly is, not just as it's seen from the outside. And that's going to allow us to have and create better high-performing teams. Before we can talk about a high-performing team, we have to talk about what a high-performing individual is. Teams are made up of individuals. And so a high-performing individual is important for us to understand so that we know who we're looking for. So we have to think about each person on our team as a whole person, right? Your high-performing individual is not just good at their job, but they're also great teammates. They have a life. They have strengths and weaknesses that are different from anybody else. They see your business through a different lens than anybody else does. And so we want to make sure that we are thinking about our people as a whole person, that we are taking into consideration kind of all of them, their strengths, their weaknesses, their flaws, all the things that make them who they are. When we are looking to identify high-performing individuals, we want to make sure that we are thinking about these things too. They're great at their jobs, but they're also great team members. They are good at both tangible and soft skills. They have a mix of both job-related and soft skills, communication skills. They also, most importantly, they value team and company success just as much as individual success. And so we're going to use this idea of the whole person to help create intentional employee profiles. And now when I say employee profiles, I'm not saying, who's the perfect person or what's the perfect employee. They don't exist. To begin with a model that says this is the perfect person is already to fail, because it's not going to happen. You're never going to get everything that you want in an employee. And that's okay. If our employee was filled with perfect people, if our company was filled with perfect people, something's going to give, right? Because it's just not the truth. That's not who people are. So we need to think about what an ideal employee is for each role and how that employee's success is going to contribute to company success. And then we have to measure what we value. We should hold employees accountable to the things that we feel like are most important and will help us best reach our goals and build that culture that we want. So when we build an employee profile, we're going to talk about things like, okay, what are the skills that they bring? Some of that's going to be the job description stuff, right? The background, the experience, being able to do certain things. But then we also want to talk about those soft skills parts of it too. They are great motivators. They are willing to help out and they're willing to support the team. We're not just talking about the things they have to do day in and day out in their job. We're also talking about who they are. And we want to create that profile, because understanding who that person is going to help us find them. When we're talking about recruiting for business, we're not talking about some scientific process. It's more art than science. It's more marketing than it is anything else to do with a job description. So we have to understand how to think like marketers, how to get in front of that ideal employee so that we know and can draw them to us to create high-performing teams. We want to measure what we value. We want to make sure that what we are putting in our profiles are what's most important to us. And the best thing we can do with a high-performing individual, this is if you have the right person, if this is a person that is a high-performing individual, then you will be able to do this. Identify what's important to you and then get out of their way. If you can't do that, if you can't tell them, this is what I need done, this is what's important to me, and then get out of their way and they can go do their job to a high level, they are not a high performing individual. Now, that's not to say that they're not going to need help or support in some way, shape, or form. But if you're always having to go in there and you're always having to talk to them and you're always having to explain things to them and you're always having to check up on them because they're not doing it or they can't self-initiate, then they're probably not in consideration for being a high performing individual. And you need to have a conversation about whether that's someone you need to keep on the team or not. There's nothing wrong with moving people off the bus who aren't traveling in the same direction as you all. It's just not, it's just most successful companies have figured out a way to get the right people in the right seats traveling in the right direction. And so if you can't create this environment where you can tell them, here's what I need done, here's how I need it done, go do it, and give them the freedom to work within their role as a whole individual, they're not a high performing individual and they probably aren't going to be a part of a high performing team. So the single most important question that you can answer to an employee or in a business echoes what was on a peer evaluation in the Army. As a veteran, this was one of the most important things and has always stuck out to me when we're doing peer evaluations of each other, was always, would I go to war with this person, right? At the end of the day, would I trust this person with my life? Regardless of what else has happened, would I go to war with this person? Well, you as a business, obviously the question is going to look a little different, but you as a business leader, when you're looking at an individual for consideration about being on a high performing team, your question should be, do I trust this person? Do I trust this person whether I'm there or not? Do I trust this person to think about the company? Do I trust this person to always do what they're doing at a high level? The answer is yes. Good chance they're a high performing individual. If the answer is no, then likely you need to either reinvest in them, retrain them, or move them on, because we want people that we can trust, because we're going to transition what type of leader we are to better help them become high performing team members. So you have a bunch of high performing individuals. Now, how do you make your team? First of all, we want to prioritize well-rounded teams. Teams that are made up of the same type of individual will clash and will be less efficient. We need to understand how each individual team member communicates and learns best. We need to understand what skills and weaknesses each individual team member possesses so that we can round each other out, so that you can have somebody that's good at one thing but maybe not another be supported by somebody who's good in the area that first person is weaker in. We need to know how they communicate. Not everybody speaks the same way. Not everybody hears things the same way. We need to understand how they process information. And then we need to allow those teams to fail. Failure is not a bad thing. Repeated failure in the same area is a bad thing. But being able to fail, try new things with the freedom that they are going to have the trust of the team and the leader to not be perfect and to make mistakes is vital to teams being high performing. If a team is not afraid to fail, and you allow them to fail and provide opportunities to grow, they're going to be more committed to you and they're going to perform better. Just flat out human nature, how things work. We also want to make sure that we're tying individual success into team success. So high performing individuals are acknowledged, but not above the team. We want to reward them, but not at the expense of the team. We want to generate just as many incentives for team wins as individual performance. And we also want to become a resource-driven servant leader instead of a manager. We want to hire them. We want to bring them in on day one and say, this is what I expect. This is what I need. Here are the limits that you can work in. And then I'm going to get out of your way. You're going to do your job. You're going to do the job I hired you to do. And I'm now going to provide resources for you to help you do it better. By doing that, they take ownership of that process. As a team, they will take ownership of their success, and they're going to be a lot more motivated to win versus someone that feels like they're always being micromanaged or is unclear about how you expect them to perform or what objectives you expect them to hit. So once we have the high performing team, now we need to keep it running. So the first thing we want to do is we want to keep them accountable. Great teams welcome accountability. Accountability is not a bad thing. It fosters trust in both directions. And accountability is critical to ensuring teams given ownership of their work remain successful. If I'm going to tell you, I'm going to hire you to do your job and get out of your way, the expectation should be, I'm going to then make sure you're doing your job. Doesn't mean I'm going to micromanage you. It means that I'm going to do regular check-ins with you. It means I'm going to be invested in the outcomes. It means I'm going to be kept apprised of what you're doing so that you can communicate to me so that I can provide better resources to you. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the trust of you having ownership over your process comes from me holding you accountable. Accountability is a great thing. It is not a dirty word. Some employees think it is, but it just basically is saying, I'm giving you the freedom and responsibility to do your job your way. I'm going to hold you accountable to make sure that it's hitting our objectives. And finally, we wanted to develop tools to help evaluate team members. I'm not talking about just a performance management system. That's part of it, an performance evaluation. But we need to understand what makes a team member successful. We want to make sure that we're not promoting just based off of productivity. Someone being good at their job does not mean they're going to be a good leader. We need to make sure we have a way of evaluating those leadership soft skills before we make any kind of promotion decision or leadership, move anyone into a leadership role. We want to provide training that covers soft skills in intentionally designed ways to ensure that they get to demonstrate those skills that they're trained on. It's not just, hey, I gave you this course, you need to go read it. It's okay, no, I'm going to give you an opportunity to show that you learned or that you listened and to see what you learned from it. We want to make sure that we are reinforcing that through demonstration. And finally, we want to create tools to help identify investment needs for teams and team members. When we're talking about giving someone a raise, a promotion, what we're really saying is how much more am I going to invest in you as a company? And if the answer is I'm going to invest a lot because you are a high performing person on a high performing individual or a high performing individual on a high performing team, then I need to have a way of evaluating that, whether it's tracking your process. So maybe you're a great performer, but not so good at leading others. So I want to know and develop a tool that allows me to understand how to better track your movement throughout the team. Yeah, everybody wants to be the 90s Bulls. And one of the things I think that makes them so effective is they were a high performing team full of high performing individuals. They weren't all the same, right? Not everybody was Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan said this. He said, talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence wins championships. Good producers, they shine for periods of time, but ultimately at the end of the day, the team is not going to succeed if it's just full of talented individuals. You need to create a cohesive team. And Phil Jackson said, the strength of the team is each individual member. The strength of each member is the team. Finding high potentials that value team success just as much as individual success will allow them to create and foster trust with each other and really push that team forward. Ultimately, at the end of the day, building a high performing team means that we're realigning our resources so that we are investing in what drives our business. We are creating teams of individuals that value team success just as much as their own. We're being intentional about what a successful employee looks like so that we can just allow them to do their job and get out of their way. And then ultimately, we're developing trust as a leader in your teams by holding them accountable to the work that they're doing. I hope you can take this and allow it to work in the way that you manage your business and your organization. And then ultimately, you can develop high performing teams and help you hit your strategic objectives. Thank you.